In the early 20th century, there existed a place that defied the odds. A community where black doctors, lawyers, business owners, and families built wealth, security, and pride all in a world that told them they didn't belong. This was Greenwood. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, they called it Black Wall Street. Luxury shops, schools, newspapers, and more than 600 black-owned businesses lined its streets. It was a thriving oasis of black success, an American dream realized through resilience and brilliance. But where some saw excellence, others saw threat. White Tulsa watched in growing resentment. How could a people so recently enslaved be flourishing while many of their white neighbors struggled? In 1921, with one accusation, one brief encounter in an elevator, that dream was set ablaze. Within 24 hours, Greenwood would be reduced to smoldering ash. Hundreds would die. Thousands would lose everything. And for nearly a century, America would pretend it never happened. This is not just a story of destruction. It's a story of what happens when hate meets ambition, when silence buries the truth, and when resilience refuses to die. Welcome to Tales Beyond Time, and welcome to one of America's most terrifying secrets. Born from struggle and forged in fire, Greenwood rose as a testament to black brilliance in a segregated world. In the early 1900s, black families, barred from white establishments, built their own economy. They turned necessity into opportunity and discrimination into fuel for independence. By 1921, Greenwood boasted over 600 black-owned businesses. There were grocery stores, pharmacies, law firms, a hospital, nightclubs, and even a private airline. J.B. Stratford, a wealthy hotelier, owned one of the finest hotels in the nation right in the heart of Tulsa's Black District. Children wore silk. Residents drove luxury cars. Greenwood was self-sufficient and proud, but its success sparked jealousy. White Tulsans, already tense from economic downturns and racial animosity, watched Greenwood thrive with suspicion. To them, it wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a challenge to the racial order. Greenwood proved black Americans could succeed without white assistance. And in a country steeped in white supremacy, that reality was unbearable to many. The stage was set. One spark, and the entire dream would go up in flames. And that spark was about to come in the most unexpected way. May 30th, 1921, a normal day in Tulsa. But inside the Drexel Building elevator, a moment occurred that would change history. Dick Rowland, a 19-year-old black shoeshiner, entered the elevator operated by Sarah Page, a 17-year-old white girl. What happened is still debated. He may have tripped and grabbed her arm. Others say they knew each other. Some insist nothing happened at all. But when Page screamed and Rowland fled, a white clerk called the police. Soon, Rowland was arrested, and by the next morning, the Tulsa Tribune published a headline implying a sexual assault, though no evidence existed. As rumors swirled, a white mob gathered outside the courthouse demanding Rowland be lynched. But Greenwood had seen lynchings before. Not again. Dozens of armed black men, many war veterans, arrived to protect Rowland and ensure due process. Tensions exploded. A white man tried to disarm a black veteran. A shot rang out. That gunshot shattered more than the uneasy silence. It ignited a mob. Within hours, chaos ruled the streets, and what began with a simple elevator ride would end with an entire community destroyed. May 31st, 1921, Tulsa descended into hell. White mobs, many armed and deputized by local authorities, launched an organized attack on Greenwood. What began as chaos turned into coordinated destruction. First came the looting stores ransacked, homes pillaged. Then came the arson. Black-owned buildings were doused with gasoline, and torched. Flames spread block by block, lighting the sky with orange rage. And then, something unthinkable. Airplanes circled overhead, dropping incendiary bombs. It marked the first time in American history that a U.S. city bombed its own citizens from the air. As fire consumed homes, families fled for their lives. Some hid in basements. Others were shot in the streets. The police did nothing. In fact, many joined the attackers. Gunfire echoed. Screams pierced the air. Black veterans fought back bravely, but they were vastly outnumbered. Within 24 hours, Greenwood, once the most prosperous black community in America, was a smoldering wasteland. But the horror wasn't over. Next came the executions, the forced arrests, the mass roundups, and the silence. June 1st, 1921. The fires still raged, but now the violence became surgical. Bodies littered the streets. Men were shot in front of their wives. Children were killed as they fled. Mothers held their babies and prayed for the flames to pass them by. Thousands of black residents, many injured and traumatized, were rounded up at gunpoint. They were taken to internment camps across the city, held like prisoners in their own homeland. And as the city lay in ruins, no help came. The dead were buried quickly, quietly, some in mass graves, others never found. Survivors told stories of seeing trucks hauling away corpses under cover of night. The official death toll was listed at 36, but eyewitnesses and historians estimate the number was well over 300. Greenwood's 35 blocks had been reduced to rubble, 1,200 homes destroyed. More than 10,000 black residents left homeless. And yet, not a single white person was arrested or punished. It wasn't just a massacre. It was an execution of lives, of futures, of justice itself. And it had only just begun to disappear from memory. After the massacre, Tulsa's leaders didn't help the survivors. They blamed them. Insurance claims were denied, citing riot clauses. No restitution was paid, no charges filed. Instead of rebuilding Greenwood, the city passed new laws to seize land and block reconstruction. The Tulsa Tribune removed its inciting front page from public records. Police reports went missing. Photos vanished. The massacre was erased from newspapers, schools, and public memory. It wasn't history. It became taboo. For survivors, speaking out was dangerous. Many were threatened into silence. Others simply shut down, too traumatized to relive the horror. It wasn't until the 1990s that a formal investigation began. The state commissioned a study. Survivors were interviewed. Newspapers were re-examined. Grave sites were located. What emerged was undeniable. Tulsa had tried to bury the truth. Not only was justice never served, but the city worked actively to destroy the evidence. This wasn't accidental neglect. It was a systematic cover-up. A city committed the crime. And then a nation let it disappear, until survivors at last broke the silence. For decades, the survivors carried their trauma in silence. But some lived long enough to finally be heard. Viola Fletcher, just 7 years old during the massacre, remembered fleeing barefoot through smoke and gunfire. At 107. She testified before Congress. "I still see black men being shot, hear the screams, smell the smoke. America may forget. I cannot." Her brother, Hughes Van Ellis, survived as an infant. He fought in World War II only to come home to a country that had never defended his family. Their stories, once confined to kitchens and church pews, began reaching the national stage. Other survivors, like Leslie Benningfield Randall, described their homes burning, their families broken, and their futures taken. Yet still, they fought to tell the truth. They didn't seek pity, they sought recognition. Reparations, justice. Their voices reignited a movement. Documentaries, articles, congressional hearings, and books followed. These brave elders, who had survived America's deadliest racial massacre, were no longer ghosts. They were witnesses, and they demanded, "Don't just remember us, do something." Though Greenwood burned, its spirit never died. Black Tulsans returned to the ashes and began rebuilding. Despite new laws, stolen land, and zero compensation, they resurrected businesses, by hand using salvaged bricks and sheer will. By the 1940s, Greenwood was thriving again, not as large, not as wealthy, but still standing. Greenwood's legacy reached beyond Tulsa. It became a symbol for black excellence, for survival, for resistance. Its memory fueled modern movements for reparations, economic justice, and historical truth. It taught the nation what happens when black success is met with white terror, and when that terror is buried instead of addressed. Today, only a few blocks remain. A cultural center, a memorial, a museum. But the dream that was Greenwood lives on in every black entrepreneur, every activist, every voice demanding justice. It says, "We built it once, we can build it again." And this time, the world is watching. Greenwood was never just a neighborhood. It was a declaration, a living, breathing answer to a country that said black people couldn't thrive. And when they proved otherwise, the price was fire, bullets, and silence. But Greenwood didn't vanish. It survived in stories whispered through generations, in the quiet courage of those who remembered, and now in you, the listener. This isn't just history. It's a mirror. Because what happened in Tulsa is a reflection of America's struggle with truth, justice, and memory. A wound left open too long can still bleed. We tell these stories not just to mourn the past, but to demand something better for the future. To remind the world that truth buried is not truth gone. If this story moved you, share it. Let it echo where silence once reigned. Subscribe to Tales Beyond Time for more lost voices, hidden chapters, and the truths history tried to erase. Because remembering isn't enough. We must refuse to forget.